All right. I told you a longer form rant was coming, and here we are. It's Dermot reporting in from the bunker, talking about some important rule changes, namely the removal of the hip drop tackle. Um, let's just dive right into it. I mentioned on Twitter I'm disappointed, and I think disappointed is definitely the right word to describe my feelings about the process by which these decisions are being made. The hip drop tackle isn't a taught technique within football. It's not something that people are told in advance of the game. Hey, go for the hip drop here. Hey, we're going to call a hip drop. It's not like it's an intentional choice by a player so much as it is a product of the circumstances of football that we have created in the past by our previous rules regarding player safety. Used to be, tackling was taught, aim with the shoulder, head on the upfield side to prevent him from crossing back on you, make contact, drive through. Then we determined the head contact was a little bit significant, creating some concussions, wanting to dial that back. Understandable. Good rule. Good rule. Get rid of the spear tackle. Targeting penalties have been enforced. That's been important. Then guys start diving at legs. So you're no longer allowed to hit up high. Everyone's going for ankles. Everyone's going for knees. The league is reasonably not pleased. Upset about the ankle injuries. Upset about the knee injuries. Trying to protect some ACLs. Trying to protect some Achilles. Especially on those skill positions that are not exactly known for their physical toughness. Now, that's all well and good because it led to wrapping up around the middle, wrap up, split the hips, drive, bring them down. If you're going forwards, that works great. The hip drop tackle comes in when you're working sideways or backwards. Someone makes a cut, you're trying to tackle them from the side or from behind. You're going in the same general direction they're going, but you're trying to bring them down before they get further forward. The term being used right now is the unweighting of the defensive player. What does that mean? That means you've wrapped him up, you're driving, you're now releasing your weight from your control to bring down the ball carrier. This is what they're trying to ban. When that happens and you land on the legs, you can create injuries. There obviously are some concerns with some big name players having been impacted directly by this recently, as so much recently as this past season with the Mark Andrews injury, as well as the Tony Pollard injury. So they're identifying the issue and they're trying to fix it by saying, all right, we'll just ban it. You can't do that anymore. But they've neglected the fact that they have run out of options for defensive players. What more do you want a defensive player to do? We're at a point now where you can't go high, because that's a penalty. Can't go low, that's a penalty. Can't wrap up in the middle and drop your weight, that's a penalty. So now you have to wrap up in the middle and drive forward and bring them to the ground. But not if it's quarterback, because if you drive forward and you land on them, now you're roughing the passer again. At what point have we run out of options? We have exhausted the defensive arsenal. How is this fair? How does this make sense? That's half the game. That's half the players on the field are defensive. Think about the history that we're trying to erase now. It appears that the point of view is that it is more valuable for the offensive player to break these tackles than it is for the defensive player to be known for making plays, for preventing passes, for stopping runs. We're negating the efforts being put in by half of the field. And I think it's disrespectful to the history of the game and where the game comes from. Think about the 1973 Rams, the 2008 Steelers, the 2001 Ravens, the 85 Bears. There have been some truly exceptionally gifted and talented defenses that have really done a lot for the game in preventing yards, in preventing big plays. Are we trying to say that the league was not as valuable? The football played was a lower quality when there's strong defenses? I would wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think that's an appropriate claim to make at all. I think it negates some of the greatest players that this game's ever seen. and to relegate their accomplishments by choosing to value only offensive players, making it only an offensive league where contact is discriminated against, I don't see how this makes football better. I see how it maybe makes football safer. But if the safety of the players is more important than the playing of the game, then why is the game being played? At some point, you have to just consent to the fact that, yes, football is dangerous. It is a contact sport. Injuries are going to happen. You're going to have to suck it up. Now, I could go into a whole rant later on about my opinions on officiating and the changes that I think are important to be made, but I'll just briefly summarize that point of view with this. If we are already at a point in the league where the refs are being heavily criticized for seemingly a lack of preparation, a lack of quality in their participation in the game, and there's already debate about the effectiveness of officiating, why are we making the lives of those refs harder? No flag thrown for a hip drop tackle is going to be a non-controversial flag. This is going to be one of those things that coaches are arguing till they're red in the face about on the sidelines, week in and week out if it gets called. I firmly believe we're at the point right now where officiating needs to be standardized. We got to start making refs full-time employees. We can't afford to have part-time refs who the entire integrity of the league is based upon, especially for things as important as safety, which the NFL has claimed it wants to make a priority. If that's the goal of operations such as this, where they are instituting new rules, making new changes, changing the way the game is played, then why don't we first double down on those efforts by actually taking officiating seriously? We need full-time refs. We need the off-season for full-time refs to be spent studying the game, going over situations, studying film, getting a unified front, an official point of view from the refereeing association. But at this point, we have not seen any progress made in that direction. So, as I mentioned, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the way that things are going. I think the rule could have been good if some certain concessions were made to the defense. But there appears to be no real traction in that direction. Quick suggestion before I let you go. The Mel Blount rule. Maybe it's time to give that away. Maybe we get to a point here where we say, hey, if we're going to limit contact after the ball is thrown and when somebody is a ball carrier, if we want to establish specific protections for ball carriers, then we need to start dialing back some of the protections on potential ball carriers. If you're allowed to be physical to prevent a pass, but you're not allowed to be physical after the ball gets there, that's at least a playable game. That's a game that we can reason out the outcomes of. We can understand that, yeah, physicality isn't as allowed as it used to be, but it's still a part of the game. If we're at the point now where everybody is playing effectively basketball defense, or a hand check might be too much, and you can only tackle him if you ask politely and lay him down gently first and give him a pillow and a snack, I don't see how football is able to keep going. It means too much to the nation for us to just let it die like this, and I'm mad about it. So that's my rant. Obviously, pretty opinionated, as I tend to be. I will continue to make my comments and opinions known here on Twitter. Thank you for following in, and I appreciate all of your support this far. We'll see how it goes. Draft's coming up. Big things in the moves. This has been interesting. You guys take it easy.